Hello and welcome to week 2 of BSAD 111. This will be week of January the 25th. This week we're going to be talking more about how you can leverage your strengths to be more successful in college, and then also help you be thinking about that in terms of what life looks like after college in terms of using your strengths once you get a job. So first we want to start with this. Our strengths help us understand who we are. And so now that you have your StrengthsFinder report, you have those 5 themes, you have 5 themes, hopefully 5 words that describe you pretty well. It's certainly not everything of who you are, but if the assessment did what it was supposed to do and you responded to the items in an honest way, they should be pretty descriptive of behaviors that you possess and probably describe where you get your energy to get things done. Those words and that definition should resonate with you pretty closely in terms of how people would view you and how you think about yourself. So one of the things that we know about the StrengthsFinder definitions and those words that you got back on your report is that they describe us. So for instance, if you had woo in your top 5, that's one of the 34 themes. Folks with woo love to meet new people. They get a lot of energy from new relationships and engaging with people for the first time. They'd say that there are no strangers in the world, they're just potential friends. And learners then would be a contrast to that, not opposites, but a contrast to that would be that these are folks that are that you would describe more as people that really are, if we described a learner, they would probably be described as somebody that's smart. They enjoy learning. They love the process of learning. They know a lot of things because they get a lot of energy from spending time learning new subject matter. Woo folks would be thought of as being friendly. So those are some of those descriptors that you would see associated with those 2 themes. They influence our choices. For instance, there's some folks out there that I know in our class that have maximizer. Maximizer is a theme that's characterized by people that get a tremendous amount of energy by recognizing the potential in something to be really, really good. So taking something good to great would be something that would be associated with maximizer. So therefore, folks that have maximizer in their top 5 are more inclined to spot something that has the potential to be great. And so the theme influences what choices they make. If they were to choose between 2 activities to do, they're probably going to think more about one that they think has the potential to be great. That might even influence their choices in terms of the clothing that they wear. They might be folks that would be associated with really taking the time and the effort to put together a great wardrobe, for instance. Restorative, these are folks that really like to fix broken things. So if you think about a maximizer as somebody that if they have a broken device, let's say their headphones stop working, maximizers are now dealing with something that's broken, and so they don't get a whole lot of energy from something that doesn't work right. So there's a good chance that a maximizer would just roll that set of headphones up and throw them right into the trash. But a restorative gets a tremendous amount of energy from fixing things, so before they throw that set of headphones out, there's a good chance they're going to try to figure out if there's some way to fix them, where they can wrap some tape around it or do something else in order to fix that. They get a lot of, and so there's how that would influence the choices between a maximizer and a restorative with a pair of broken headphones. They direct our actions. So for instance, a person with harmony is somebody that in a team or on a group would be more inclined to really take issue when there is conflict in the group. They would really want to get rid of that conflict. These are folks that know in their heart, and they get energy. They know in their heart that conflict keeps us from being more productive. And so they'd be the first person to try to figure out how to find some consensus between 2 people that are arguing. On the other hand, you have a command person, and when there's a conflict, they typically want to dive in and actually participate in the argument. They don't really have a need to get rid of the conflict. In fact, they find conflict as a way to learn. They get energized by arguing with somebody, and that oftentimes is a way that they can learn new concepts, is just by discussing it with somebody and figuring things out. So there's that contrast between those 2 themes and how those themes direct specific actions of people that have those separate themes. Then they explain why we are better at some things than others, and I think this is a really important point. Our strengths are kind of that code that if we can decode will help us really have a plan for how we can be successful into the future and really pick and choose those opportunities that we have to be great at something. So the examples of how that influences or how they explain why we're better at some things than others. For instance, a person with includer. These are folks that really get a lot of energy from including people in activities. So for instance, if you invited an includer to go to lunch, there's a good chance by the time you walked through your dorm hallways, they would have knocked on some doors and invited some other folks to go with you in order to have lunch together as a group, because they like to include people. That's something that they get energy from. On the other hand, if you have somebody, for instance, if I have high individualization and I want to go to lunch with somebody, there's a good chance I want to go to lunch with just that person, because I get a tremendous amount of energy from just finding out about the uniqueness of an individual. So there's a good chance I prefer to have lunch with just one person as opposed to many. Now, the other thing that you got to keep in mind is that there can be combinations of themes, and they can influence the way we act as well as those themes come into combination. So for instance, if you had a person that had both includer and individualization, they might, yes, invite more people to join for lunch, but they're still going to be looking for those opportunities to recognize the uniqueness of an individual with each person that participates, or each person that comes along. All right, hopefully that helps you out in thinking about those themes and how they operate within us. Here's some key truths that we know about strengths, is that there is a strong connection between who people are and what they do best. All right, so our behaviors, where we come from, how those themes developed in us, really kind of give us our clues to the potential for us to do something really, really good. There's a strong connection between what people do best and how they feel. So when we're doing something that really resonates with us and that we're good at, we get a lot of emotional satisfaction from that. And there is a strong connection between how people feel and then how they perform. So if I'm getting a lot of emotional energy from something that I do well, there's a really good chance that a lot of good things are going to be associated with that. And we'll talk about that in a minute, just those specific things. But those feelings, that emotional energy, has a huge impact on our performance. So let's get more into that. In fact, what we know is that somebody with our emotions are involved, and we get that emotional energy to do something, and that's a result of putting our strengths into play. One of the things that we know is that we're faster. We can get work done more quickly and not less accurately. And in fact, we still maintain precision. If I'm doing something out of my strengths, for instance, I have the theme of ideation, and I love to come up with ideas. Well, there's a good chance that I'll come up with ideas faster than other people. And then as well, those ideas are probably going to be ones that are of more quality. Not only that, if I'm in work that involves my strengths, there's a good chance that I'm going to stay in that job longer. So I'll stay with the job. I'm not looking to jump and find a new job quickly. And as well, I'm usually at work every day. If I know that in the morning when I wake up that I'm going to get to go to work and do a job where my strengths are in play, and that I'm getting to get that emotional energy off of doing things that I have the potential to do really well, there's a good chance that I don't want to miss work. I, in fact, really love it. And then as well, we also remember, again, we go back to that previous slide, working out of our strengths creates that emotional energy, and that emotional energy is what creates engagement in the work that we do. So how do we do there? How do we get there? So we've gone through the first part of the process. We've named our strengths by taking the StrengthsFinder assessment. We've got 5 now to work with. Not all of the ones that we possess, but there are at least some ones to start with. So we've got some names that are associated with those strengths that we have. And that's the first part of the process. The next is to claim it. How can we own this strength for us personally, besides just agreeing with the definition? What are some other ways that we can own it at a deeper level? And the way to do that, I think, best is to look back into our past and to see where our strengths have been in play in successes that we've had in the past. So if you have achiever in your top 5, for instance, there's a good chance that you can look back in your past and figure out that you finished a project on time because you know that you had the energy to make the list of things that were required to get that particular project done, and then you worked hard until it was completed because you love to check it off the list as soon as you get something accomplished. And so that could have been a good example of how that strength was in play in the past. And when we figure out those examples and understand how those strengths were in play in in the past, we gain confidence that these strengths are ones that we can depend on in the future. And so the future is what we need to consider next. When a project comes on or an assignment is due or we're participating in a student activity, we'll have the opportunity to think, what strengths could I put into play? And so we're aiming our strengths at specific things that we want to achieve. Strength, it's important to remember that the 5 themes that you had on your StrengthsFinder report are a roadmap for you to being productive and getting to a particular outcome. That was the whole intent of us having you take the StrengthsFinder instrument and to get those words was, how can I apply these strengths to be more productive? All right, so let's talk a little bit more about some specific themes. I wanted to kind of just give you some examples of some different themes. I can't run through all 34. That's what we have on the screen here. But I can give you some specific examples that can be generalized as you think about the rest of the strengths. So let's take a look at just a few. And by the way, these are a few that I checked on your Blackboard assignments. I know that these appeared in some of your top 5 reports, and you guys mentioned and talked about them on the discussion boards. And you did a really good job of that, by the way. Thanks so much for your contributions to the discussion board. So the first one I'm going to talk about is competition. Just kind of randomly picked that one, but this is one that a number of students have. I think we've got some student athletes in the class, and that's probably reflective of why we have so many people with high competition. These are folks that get a tremendous amount of energy. Folks that have competition get a tremendous amount of energy from the opportunity to compete, where there would be a winner and a loser. So if I know, if I can, it's a relationship-oriented theme. If I know somebody that I can compete against, then I'll have the opportunity to go up against them, and then we will determine a winner and a loser. There has to be a winner and a loser for competition people to be satisfied with the whole action, with the whole activity of competing against somebody. It can't be win-win. It can't be a participation ribbon. Somebody wins and somebody loses. And because of that winning and losing, it's a great motivator for competition people to want to win. They're always going to find that motivation and that extra effort to try to do their very, very best. And so obviously a perfect example or perfect application of that would be in a sports setting or an athletic competition. But it doesn't have to be. In fact, I know a lot of competition students that have been able to leverage that strength to be more successful academically by identifying a specific person that they're okay with comparing their scores against. So you find somebody that you figure out is probably about at the same level of that you are in terms of your academic abilities, and then you set it up just to make sure that once you complete a test or complete an assignment, you're going to compare. And if you win, that's a great motivation. And if you lose, it's also a great motivation to do better next time. So that's a way that you could apply competition in an academic setting. Another great theme is futuristic. This one, again, I just randomly picked, but I know that there's a number of students in our class that have futuristic in their top 5. Futuristic finds its motivation and its energy around the potential of this awesome future that's out there. The future is always bright within the context of the futuristic theme. And so how do we use that? How can we leverage that theme to be more successful? Well, in an academic setting, for instance, one of the mind tricks that a futuristic person should play is they should always be thinking about what becomes possible when they do well in a particular subject or when they complete an assignment. So if they always think about, I don't have the motivation to study for this test because it's just something that's happening right now in the middle of my life, my current life, then what they need to do is kind of think about it from another perspective. They need to say to themselves, you know what, I don't have a whole lot of motivation for this test right now, but I know if I do well on this and I do well in this class, the potential for me to be able to get into law school or the potential for me to pursue my MBA gets that much closer to me. And that's something in the future. I see myself graduating with not only my undergraduate degree, but also getting my master's degree. That can be that great motivation to study for a test right now in the current setting. Another theme that I saw a lot of was positivity. These are folks that get a lot of energy by energizing other people. They're glass half full people. They love it. They always seem to be able to take a positive take on what's going on. And as a result of that, they generate a lot of energy and positivity within a work group. So if you're on a team and you have somebody with positivity, give them the permission and even maybe give them the position of being responsible for making sure that everybody feels positive and excited about the work that they're doing, and give them the opportunity to do whatever it takes for folks to feel connected and energized about being a part of the group. And they'll find a lot of energy to do that, and they'll do it very, very successfully. And they'll bring all the team members up with them to match the positivity that they possess. All right, and the last one I'll talk about is another one that I saw a number of students have in their top 5, and that's strategic. These are folks that get a lot of energy from just seeing all the different paths to a particular future, to a particular endpoint. So I love working with strategic people because I don't have that theme in my top 5. Instead, I've got activator. My immediate reaction is that when I'm working on a project is let's just get started doing something right now. We'll kind of figure it out along the way. But if I've got somebody with strategic on my team, I can also rely on them. So I'll get things started. We'll start moving in a direction. But a strategic person will keep helping me, reminding me of potential obstacles that are out there, because that's the way their mind think. They get so much energy from figuring out what those next steps are and kind of weaving themselves through the flow chart to get to a particular objective or a particular completion. And so they're great to have on a team because oftentimes they'll spot possible traps or roadblocks that are ahead of us and help us avoid that. All right. So lastly, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about these 5 statements. 3 of them are going to be ones that I'm asking you to talk about on the discussion boards. You get the best of me win, you get the worst of me win, and you can count on me too, okay? And you finish those off, and what I want you to do is I want you to share something and then reinforce it with, out of what particular theme that statement is coming from. So for instance, for me, I'll go back to that activator theme. You get the best of me when you put me in a situation where I get to start things. I'm not really good at managing a process that has to be done over and over and over again, and there's no change, and it's already in place. There really doesn't need to be anything needs to be done. It just needs to be executed in the same way over and over again. Achiever might be something that's really good for that one, or possibly responsibility, because responsibility gets a lot of energy from just being responsible for the things that they're assigned to them. All right, so maybe that would be a more appropriate assignment for somebody with high responsibility. So that's okay. And then you get the worst of me when you put me on a team. I have the theme command. Few of you have that, not many. It's not a very prominent theme. There's not a lot of folks with command in their top 5. But if you put me on a team with a poor leader, and I'm willing to have somebody else lead the team as long as I think they're competent and that they can do the job well. But if you put me on a team with a poor leader, or one that's inconsistent, or one that just doesn't have any energy to lead other people, I'll get frustrated really quickly, and that's when you'll see the worst of me. I'll probably act out in a way that's not appropriate because I get so frustrated with the style of leadership or the effectiveness of the leader. So those are a couple of examples for you to think about just for my own themes. That's what I want you to share. Best, worst, and then kind of describe that in terms of at least one particular theme that you possess. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say about that. So I'm going to end with this quote. You can't be anything you want to be, but you can be a whole lot more of who you already are. And I really want us to think about this week as we go through the assignments that are associated with leveraging your strengths. We have the potential to do so much more and to be so much more effective and to be really good at something when we're working out of our strengths, as opposed to just trying to mitigate our weaknesses. So if we have some kind of thought that it's more effective, or that we'll be a more effective person in the future by working on our weaknesses, what I've found is that you're dumping a lot of energy down a black hole. And then you're not going to get a whole lot of return on the energy that you give to try to build a weakness up. For instance, I don't have very high empathy. That's really, really low for me. If you put me into jobs where I'm required to be empathetic, and that's a requirement for real success and achievement within that role, like for instance, a counseling psychologist, then I'm not going to be all that successful at it. All right? So instead of focusing and trying to get better at empathy so I can be a counseling psychologist, I'm going to look for other roles where my strengths can be applied. And that's really what that quote means. But think about that this week as you go through the assignments and figure out those ways where you can leverage your strengths and then just minimize the weaknesses. We don't ignore them, but we just minimize them so that they don't have that much of an impact on us. Okay, and then some last reminders. Remember that you need to go back to Blackboard. There's a number of assignments that you need to complete this week, and as well the discussion board post. foremost. And then in addition to that, there's also some information right there on the announcements about the coaching opportunity that you're going to have. Every one of you are going to be required to have 2 coaching sessions with a strengths coach that has been assigned to you. And this is going to be a great opportunity for you to sit down with somebody that cares about you, really wants you to be successful, and also has the knowledge to help you leverage your strengths better, understand them better. So if you're conflicted and you don't understand what a particular theme means, or you don't see how to apply it, or you don't think it's a strength, maybe you feel like it's been a weakness for you in the past. Here's going to be this amazing opportunity for you to sit down with an expert, and they're going to help you talk through and think about your strengths in terms of your success academically in this first session. And we'll talk more about the next session in the future. But this first session that's coming up, you're going to be talking about leveraging your strengths to be successful academically. And so your coach is going to be getting in touch with you and trying to set up a time for you to meet with them one-on-one on campus and talk about your strengths. So those are some things to be looking forward to. Hope you have a great week, and thanks so much for your work so far.